I want to circle back to a couple of the positive outcomes that we've talked about for unschooling, and that would be higher rates of goal setting, of self goal setting, and lower anxiety. And I want to talk about why those, especially those, the goal setting is so important for adulthood and even for our economy. I feel the future of our, of America is in our innovation and our creativity. And I feel because we've seen in a lot of instances that public school is kind of bringing that down because everything is just given because it's
Mhm.
all top down driven. If you would just talk again about goal setting and then some of the lowering of anxiety that we see for unschoolers and why is that important, not just for the students, but even for our society and our economy.
Well, when you think about it, whenever any of us have personal agency over our lives and we have control over how we spend our days and what we're interested in, and are able to collaborate with others, that are also that share these interests and so on, that you're generally more fulfilled, you're more satisfied, and you're more likely to pursue meaningful goals. And really persevere with those goals. I think you mentioned your children and their interests in coin collecting and in foreign languages as well. I'm sure they have many other interests as well. And just the kind of commitment to those passions and what comes from that is really extraordinary, and I think sets children up for great success. Now as they're growing as well as in adulthood. I'll circle back a bit to Peter Gray because it's new research that I think is really relevant to your question and also to what we're all experiencing. Peter Gray is also, again, he's the Boston College psychology professor. He's also on the board and one of the co-founders of an organization called Let Grow, which really focuses on encouraging more freedom and autonomy and play for children, and allowing them more of this freedom and independence. And they just recently released new study findings based on surveys that they've sent out to families during the pandemic, finding that actually, contrary to what we might think, many children um, are handling the pandemic emotionally quite well. In fact, in some cases, even better because they're outside of that schooled environment where there's lots of peer pressure, potentially lots of bullying, maybe a lot of stress and anxiety around the classroom. So their overall psychological well-being is better, they found, since children are out of school. Of course, they desperately miss their friends. So the social isolation piece is key and something that I think parents need to be aware of and trying to allow their children to have much more social interaction, even during this pandemic, because the consequences of that isolation, I think, are severe. But aside from missing their friends, their overall psychological well-being has improved with regard to learning and education and being much calmer and having a good outlook. The other thing that they found in their survey was that young people are taking more personal responsibility and showing more independence. And that was something, again, we would expect as young people are able to be, to some extent, put back in charge of their own learning, or at least not commanded and controlled all day long in a conventional classroom. So that was good to see. And then one of the other findings I thought was really promising was that parents during the pandemic who were surveyed in this particular Let Grow survey were found that they were pleasantly surprised to see the tremendous capabilities of their children that they might not have had a chance to see before, that their children really do have tremendous gifts, tremendous skills, tremendous talents, and that because we're kind of all together living and learning more closely, parents were able to see this for potentially the first time.
Yeah, I think that's great. I know in the beginning, a lot of parents were very worried and, couldn't wait to send their kids back to school. And I'm hearing more of that also, that, that this time has been, very important into reconnecting the family. And I hope to hear more of those stories. And hopefully 2020 will not go down as, necessarily all negative, that there'll be some positives that came, from that family unit reconnecting.